Welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, and I'm so excited to be here. Uh, we are marking the Day of an African Child, and the theme of this year is building an Africa that is fit for all children. And I think that is a very interesting theme. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about our work, um, what we do in Kenya, and my work in the community, working with children, and just to highlight our contribution towards making an Africa that is fit for children. First, I will introduce myself for those who do not know me. I am Zacchaeus Ogonji. Sorry, I'm Zacchaeus Ogonji, CEO Inua Village to Global Foundation, and I also work as Africa Coordinator for Lift the Children. And in both my positions, I have an opportunity to work and serve children in a very unique way. First, if I start with Lift, if I start with the Inua Village to Global Foundation, my work entails building community schools and building community initiatives that support children to access quality education. In this context, most of the time, we address the needs for the children who are living within community and outside the confines of what you would consider an institution. So basically, with our schools, the children come in the morning and they go home in the evening. We address very unique challenges at this point where we focus on things like food, access to food. We look at strengthening families so that children can be safer in their families and in the environment. We look at aspects of education where we work closely with communities, and we also work closely with government to set up institutions or community schools, the way we call them, to make available access to quality education. Now, the challenges are many, and that's why we found it very useful for us to be able to do something in the context of rural marginalized communities and communities in slums and other setups like those. At Lift the Children, I still do the same work, but in a different environment or circumstance. I work with children institutions, which are basically, many people know them as orphanages. We call them charitable children institutions. And these charitable children institutions host children and provide for opportunities for children to flourish and be better away from the environment that otherwise would have not supported them. My work is mostly to visit these institutions, see what they do, support them with capacity building, support them with skills and knowledge on how best they can provide and learn and run their facilities, and to ensure that the best interest of the child is taken care of. We, under Lift the Children, we also have an opportunity to give some monthly funding that we support. Today, as we reflect about the Day of an African Child, which is a very special day in our context in Africa, and I actually was surprised to learn that this day was first, it emanates from a very important incident that happened in 1976 in Soweto, South Africa, where several school children marched in protest and to seek that they be given quality education. They wanted to be taught in a language that they understand. As I've spent time thinking about that, it reflects on what every African child go through from the time they are born to the time when they become adults. From my work, I've realized that actually many have to play parents at a very early age because of the circumstances. I remember even when we were growing up, we had to work not just in our own farm, but also look for work in neighborhoods so we could do and raise income to supplement what was available at home. Reflecting from that and now the work that I do, there is even a more coincidence that today African child has to overcome a lot of obstacles, has to work really hard, like extra hard, to be able to emerge from childhood and go into successful adulthood. Whether it is from the environment where they are born, where they lack most of the time basic things, whether it is the challenges of not having basic needs in terms of food, or having to overcome life-threatening diseases to finally emerge. So having worked in both contexts that I talked about in terms of working with children who live in institutions, of course they come from communities, and also working with children who are in basically community setups, but really are exposed to vulnerabilities. I have come to realize that it is important that the Day of an African Child gives us an opportunity to not just amplify the voices, but also highlight the challenges and the issues that the children on this continent go through before they finally become adults. I want to share a small story. I'll share two stories of very interesting children in both setups that I've worked in and I continue to work in today. When we started our project in Vihiga County, that was Village to Global Achiever School. We immediately received children from very different households that were experiencing different challenges and difficulties. And I think as we settled in to start to make sense of the children we were having, we started to realize there were more problems than what we had actually anticipated. While setting up a school, of course, the objective is to help children access quality education. But when children come to school and they have not eaten, they have life-threatening diseases and nobody has taken them to hospital or paid attention on what medical support they would require to get out of this situation, or they lack books, they have walked so many kilometers, All these issues affect how children learn. So as the school started to settle down, we started to realize different children were actually experiencing different um, challenges. And one child that I can remember very well, her name is Doreen. I'll just say one name. Doreen had a heart problem actually when she was diagnosed after a few months. What the doctor said was she had a hole in her heart. She was really struggling. She could come to school, she was very weak. She could not eat. She spent most of her time sleeping. She looked actually smaller than her age. And out of curiosity, we started to engage with the mother just to find out what's the issue, why is the child like that. And as we got closer to the family, we started to learn that this girl has been sick since she was born, in and out of normal clinics. Whenever they are recommended to go for thorough treatment, there is no money to be able to help them to do so. So they end up coming back home, and they fall back on prayer, they fall back on hope, they fall back on God to do His own way. And this meant that the girl continued to cough, continued to have very severe effects on her health generally. The mother didn't actually explain that she understood what the child was suffering from, because they had never had an opportunity to do a full check on what exactly the problem was. So we intervened, and through our networks and people that we work with, we managed to take this girl to the hospital in Kisumu. She was checked. It was found that she had a small hole in the heart that was affecting her. The doctor said it might need to be. It looks like it was. It looked like it was going to be a surgery case, but because there were no resources and this family had not been enrolled on NHIF, she advised us that we go get them enrolled on NHIF first, National Hospital Insurance Fund, and then from there we can start to pursue the path of a possible surgery, which she said they will have to do other tests to confirm if it is severe, and in that case, if it is, then she will have to go out of the country to access treatment. As the mother interacted with this news, it even became apparent that it was going to be very, very hard, because she was looking at where she was and the needs and things that will be needed, and she was already persuaded that that is likely to be a difficult path. But we continued to intervene, we worked together, and eventually we got them a National Hospital Insurance Fund card. We paid for almost a year. And in that process, the doctor recommended some medication to help reduce the pain the girl was having, and also to see if the situation or the condition improves. So the girl was put on medication as we waited. And fortunately, maybe 6 months down the line, they went back to the hospital for a checkup, and it looked like her situation had really, really improved. When I met the mother and we were talking, and she said, ever since we went to the hospital in Kisumu, I have been able to know what the problem is. With the medication we are receiving, the girl is now able to sleep very well. She's more calm. She's eating well than before. And this reflected in their well-being of their family, because the family was actually starting to fall apart because the parents were disagreeing. There was obviously the pressure that comes with such a medical condition was starting to affect the relationship between the father and the mother. But as the girl started to recover, eventually things started to look up very well. And when we visited the family again, they were more united, they were more motivated and encouraged, and we felt that was a good thing we did. And I think we prepared Doreen to be like a child, the way she deserves it. And now she comes to school. She has gotten very well. She's very jumpy, climbs the trees in the school, very active. And when I think about Doreen's story and when I look back to that particular intervention, I think that is what building an Africa that is fit for um, all children is. That children should not be able to suffer from such conditions if we can do something. It is important as we work with families and support them to for children to access education to try and come up with ways that we can really support families to address economic issues, challenges that they go through, social and mental and all other forms of challenges that they face. So, from that story and reflecting on many other children that we have interacted with, it is the responsibility for all of us to work closely and to make sure that we continue to build the Africa that is fit for all the children. And in so doing, it will not just take my effort, but it will take everybody's effort. It will take a coordinated approach. It needs consciousness on the side of policymakers as we work with vulnerable children, orphaned, destitute, children who don't have parents or other support systems. It is incumbent on us to make sure that we do not just make rules or decisions in isolation, but to engage the communities around or in which the children live and to seek solutions that are fit for children. Often I have come across challenges where children have to be lifted from very far away and taken to facilities halfway across the world or halfway across the country to just get an environment that is safer for them. Often this destabilizes the child's well-being. It destabilizes their concentration. It is sort of a feeling that a fish will get if it was to be moved from an ocean to a lake, or perhaps from a lake to water on a basin, you know. So this destabilizing feeling that comes with change of environment that is very drastic sometimes does very little to help the welfare and the well-being of the child. I have also seen situations where people agree to support children to either access education or to be able to get out of particular situations. For example, someone picks up a child, they move them from their home, they move them to a better place, they start to provide for them. And then for one reason or the other, they just drop the child along the way. This is before the child transitions fully or settles in fully to become whoever they can be. That also affects children because how will you feel if you are burning in a house and someone came and pulled you out of the fire, and then as you just start to get treated and recover and start to feel well, another person comes and throws you back in the fire, or the same person who supported you to get out of the fire throws you back into the fire. That's the kind of a feeling that when we start to support a child, we should be prepared, or we should look forward to support this child fully up to when they can be able to stand on their own. And what I usually advise is it's better to pick the right age. So if you want to support a child for just 2 years, you better pick a child who is maybe 16 years old. If you are prepared to support for 4 years, you can pick those who are maybe 12 years. If you have the energy to go all the way, you can choose even those who are 1 day old. go into processes like adoption or full-time sponsorship or such. Because this way, the child doesn't have to go back in the situation they were in before you decided to support them. And that really becomes very helpful in terms of transitioning that child and helping that child become an adult and achieve the things that they can achieve in life. So as we intervene and as we work in the communities, especially the work that we do with the Inua Village to Global Foundation, we do not just go into the community and look at, yeah, we have come here to help children access education. We look at, will we be able to do it and do it well into the long term, because there is no need for us to start and then when life has just started to get better, when families are getting more stable, we pull out, either because we don't have funds or either because we didn't just plan well. In any circumstance, it is very good that we plan way, way better, and we plan for the long term and understand that we want to put up an environment where children can thrive and thrive for a long time. So I do believe that as we plan and as we work in the communities where we work, we continue also to invest in understanding what are the issues. If you are working in Kajiado County, for example, in Kenya, there are a lot of challenges there to do with FGM, female genital mutilation, or there are issues of early marriage, children being married off. If you have not understood the scope and the cultural background of the issues in the particular community, you will have a challenge to intervene and intervene well, because you might find yourself addressing issues that are not very key to the children. So at Inua Village to Global Foundation, we make sure that we analyze the community well. We know what the issues are. We engage family to family to understand what are the dynamics, what are the challenges in that family, how best can we support the family. This holistic approach ensures that we are not just designing projects that we think can work, but we are designing projects and solutions that parents and communities feel that can work and can solve their everyday problems. And for us, that becomes a very important point of intervention. The other thing is, and this I will explain a bit using a story, alluding to the work now that I do with Lift the Children. And sometimes we hear a lot of, there is of course a lot of interest and concerns that we should pursue alternative care programs, and we should pursue that children live within communities, children live within families, and they get supported within the family setup, which is a very good thing. And I do appreciate that this will really help give children the environment they need to thrive rather than pulling them out. But again, having worked with the children homes and seeing the important work that they do and the place they are, I appreciate that there is a need for us to support people who are intervening, especially to support groups of children who completely have no place to go, or they need a place to be for safety reasons. We need to continue to create safe spaces for children. And these safe spaces could be the facilities that we already have in existence, which are the children homes, with us working in Lift the Children, supporting them to be better caregivers and giving them tips on how they can improve the environment in which they raise and support this kind of children. It is important that outside that setup, we have many other safe spaces where children who are affected and children who are going through difficulties can find shelter, can find a place to be children, and can find places to be to thrive, you know, because every day that a child goes without being a child, they lose a lifetime opportunity, because when that day is gone, it is very hard for that child to recover that day. So if a child is supposed to go to be in school and they live a year or 2 or 3 without going to school, then there is an opportunity missed, and this child might not recover those 3 years or 4 years they have stayed out of school. So it is very important for all of us who are thinking about the Day of an African Child today and reflecting on issues that the African children face on the continent, that we understand that all of us, starting with parents, communities, teachers, government, policymakers, and everyone, including the churches and the religious institutions, that a child doesn't have one more day, they only have today. And if we miss an opportunity to make the right decision to help them today, tomorrow they will no longer be children, and the opportunity to do or be children will have disappeared off their mind. I know that we need to raise responsible citizens of the country, of the countries in Africa, as we go forward. And that's why it is important, as I speak to young leaders across, like myself, I think while it is important that we work with the generation ahead of us, if we really want to make a lot of change and significant change, we should pay attention to the generation behind us, because we can shape some things from the generation ahead of us. We can change how they approach things. We can make noise. They can improve schools. They can improve services that are available to families and children and communities. And when our opportunity to lead, and even as we are leading now, we can continue to do further improvement. But if we do not prepare the generation behind us, who are children in that case, then we do not have people who will continue the work that we will have started. We are here because we were prepared as children. And myself, I'm a beneficiary of community's effort. I consider myself having been raised by community, because when I did something wrong, my neighbors were there to chastise me, and our neighbors were there to chastise me. And when I was at school, the teachers and everybody looked at me as their own son, and they gave the support that they needed. And when it reached a place where I needed to transition and get education, I got support from the spaces that I will least expect. And these people understood that as a child, I could not do much, but if they invested in me, then they had an opportunity to transform something. And now that they empowered me when I was a child, I'm able to do much more today. And I think it is important for me also to create the same, not just for one, but for many children to have voices when their time comes, when they finally become adults, to continue the conversation around improving the environment where how children are born and how children grow up in Africa, whether it is in health, whether it is in education, whether it is in agriculture and the food they eat, and all those aspects of well-being that are needed for children to be well. As I come to the end of today's reflection on the Day of an African Child, I just want to leave you with the thought that if we start today and we work together to support children in whatever environment, then tomorrow will be better. We will have many people to support us. I recently had an opportunity to participate in the World Environment Day that was organized by our schools, in our Village to Global Foundation schools. And I had children participating, and we marched about 8 kilometers. Each child was having a tree, that as a small tree seedling, and they chanted along the way as we marched. Cut one, plant five. They passed a message of encouragement to their communities about improving and conserving the environment. And having participated with these children, which I think if there was the eldest should have been maybe 12 years or 11 years, it gave me a lot of satisfaction that while we were growing up, we didn't even know, we didn't even have an opportunity to celebrate an international day in the way that we did with these children. Because in remote villages, children are really removed from the realities of what is happening internationally. But having them participate in march or in an event like this helps them to open up their horizons and their minds. And when they are adults and they have capacity to do what we can do today, I think they will surpass what we have done and what we have achieved because we've prepared them well. Let us continue preparing Africa that is fit for the children. Let us extend a hand of support to a family that is struggling, because if you see them struggling and you don't support them, tomorrow you will see that child, their child in the street. And when the child is in the street, your options of helping becomes very minimal. As you interact, as you go around, think of families. How can you support them? As you see children, think how you can make an environment that is fit for them to be children. Thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with children across board and also to serving the community that has given me so much. And on behalf of Inua Village to Global Foundation, and by the way, you should check our website, you should follow us, like our pages, social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us continue this conversation about how best we can help children and how best we can make sure that the environment is fit for all the children. Thank you to my team for the wonderful work that they do to serve children in the schools and everywhere. And thank you for being an awesome example. And this day, we mark it because you have been doing that great job of supporting one child at a time. And let us keep it that way, one child at a time. Thank you and bye.